I'm Laura Thomas. I'm a solutions coordinator at the Center for Professional and Executive Development. And I'm excited to have all of you here today as we hear from Artel Smith. And before I introduce Artel, I'd like to share a few words about the Wisconsin School of Business Center for Professional and Executive Development. And you may have heard it, and we call it CPED. And so here at CPED, we offer programs, certificates that really give you that modern, relevant skills needed to advance in your career. And just to let you know that all of our programs offer interactive learning sessions, and they're facilitated by instructors with practical business experience. CPED also partners with organizations to provide customized professional development programs, such as coaching and consulting. And so for more information about the Center for Professional Executive Development, CPED, please visit us at uwcped.org. So just so you know, today, if you have any questions you'd like to ask during the webinar, you can submit those questions using either the chat or the QA buttons at the bottom of the Zoom webinar screen. And we will pose those questions that are submitted during the Q&A at the end of today's webinar. And I also want to mention that in today's webinar, it's being recorded, and a link of the recording will be made available to all of you within the next few days. Now, I'd really like to introduce to you Artel Smith. Artel has an extensive experience in human resources management, advising, and focusing on the overall people strategy, talent management, development, and compensation and benefits. He has led transformative projects across all aspects of HR work globally, including talent development, generalist services, operations, technology, and global sourcing. Artel currently serves as the principal and managing director of WatchWorks Management Consulting, LLC. He has also authored 2 books, No Time to Waste and Engage, Coach, and Develop. So thank you all for being here today, and welcome, Artel.
Well, thank you, Laura. I really appreciate the introduction. I'm glad to be here today. This is one of my, not only is it a favorite topic, but I will describe it as a topic which has come up quite a lot in the course of the last couple of years, and there's some reasons behind that. But what we're going to talk about is identifying and managing urgency in retail customer care, and especially we're going to focus a little bit on why the customer is so impatient and what really defines urgency nowadays and what can we do about it. So the one thing I know about human adult behavior is that none of us like to have to deal with problems, especially ones that could be avoided. And unfortunately, in the customer service world, customer care world, there are more than a few moments where that's exactly the problem that is confronting us. It is evolving, and we're going to hit on a couple of topics here that will help us to kind of frame the problem, talk about potential solutions, and maybe even some of the behaviors that we could start exhibiting either as customer care professionals or as customers. So we'll talk a little bit about the retail customer and what they're like today and why, discuss impatience, as I've already kind of previewed. I'm also going to touch on employee frustration. So think of this as the customer care professional and the frustrations they experience and why that might be contributing to the challenges. We'll decode some urgent messages that are coming from customers, learn how to build some verbal bridges to improve the customer service experience for all involved. We'll talk about some composure techniques, which was a phrase I might be using more in some of my other learning experiences. I love the thought of a composure technique. And then, by way of that, help us to prepare for the inevitable, which is that problems do arise, humans do have to interact, and we do need to try to solve those issues and problems as quickly as we can. We'll conclude with a couple of do's and don'ts, and that will be our time here together today. I would like to encourage everyone to put questions into the chat as they come along. We'll answer them at the end of our program. We'll reserve 10 or 15 minutes for us to do that. But don't hesitate to put your question in now, and then we will address it when that time of the session comes up. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in and talk about today's retail customer. So there are some what may seem to be simple descriptions of the retail customer, but just like an onion, you can peel it back and you can begin to see why these characteristics can create challenges in a customer service interaction. So I'm not of the mind that every generation that interacts with customer service is going to have the exact same characteristics. We're all individuals, and our focus of time and energy does vary quite a little bit. But what we'll talk about is some generalities, and I'll give you a couple of things along the way. So the fact of the matter is that we are more interested in building communities in both a physical way and in an online way than we ever have been in the past. Um, we've all known about airline frequent flyer programs for many years, but we're now, as a collective, we're disappointed if organizations that we frequent and places where we buy a lot of things, when they don't have a quote unquote frequent flyer program, we're disappointed because that's a way of actually creating a community, common interest, things that we enjoy individually as well as collectively. And so this push to have a community of interest in the most basic sense of I and many other people avail ourselves of product and services of a certain organization, we actually like to feel that there's a community behind that. I'm not going to touch on all of these, so don't worry, but I will touch on a couple of them. We demand higher levels of personalization. This is partly because of the way technology has emerged. But if there's something we receive from a retail organization, again, part of a program, as I just mentioned, or any other thing, we like to see our name attached to the things that we like in a way that's easily identifiable. And when we don't have that personalization, we do wonder. Most of us get solicitations in email as well as physical paper, though that's diminishing quite a bit. I'm of an age and circumstance where I get a lot of physical envelopes that are trying to sell me life insurance. What's fascinating to me is getting that personalized letter. Here's what you need. Here's what we think you should buy. And I'm not very tempted, by the way, to purchase all of those things, but I do like the fact that it's personalized to more or less my circumstances. We expect instant gratification. Once upon a time, we could tolerate the notion of something being delayed or that we wouldn't receive information for a day or two or three or even a week. When I was a customer service representative many years ago, I remember saying to customers at a time when there were not online systems that they could refer to easily, well, you'll get a letter from us in the mail in 7 to 10 business days. And even though people didn't like waiting, they also understood that we were relying on the US Postal Service or whoever it might be to get that letter there. We're no longer in the 7 to 10 business day category. In fact, I think we're more in the 30-second category when it comes to expectations of instant gratification. And this is a characteristic that is growing more intense as time goes on. Most of us want to be able to go online, to check a balance, to do a transaction, to order a product in order for us to be as gratified as quickly as we can. I'm very lucky here in Kenosha, Wisconsin, because there's a very large Amazon warehouse not too far down the road from me. And almost everything that Amazon sells, I can get the afternoon of the day that I place the order. That's instant gratification. It's pretty darn close to instant. And it's something that I appreciate. If I'm other places in the country and I order something from Amazon, I might not be sitting right next to a warehouse and it could take me a full 24 hours. As it turns out, I don't want to wait 24 hours if at home I can get it in less than 6. That's what we're talking about. Um, the other characteristic that I think is happening very consciously throughout our society is that we want to be able to engage with organizations on a mobile first basis. I don't want to have to go into a physical location if I can possibly avoid it. I want to be able to look at my phone. I want to be able to get someone on the phone as quickly as possible. At least a chat with a computer system is going to satisfy me more, and that is a mobile first outlook on on our collective view as a society right now. So those are some characteristics of the retail customer as they exist at the moment, and it has been evolving and very quickly, we might add. Why are customers losing their patience so much faster than it used to be? Well, we've identified a few of these causes. We can jump into them right now, but first let me just describe the issue of impatience. Um, I don't know that I would ever describe myself as a patient person to someone else, but I have over the years of my life determined that there's some things that I must be patient about. Um, but recently, I've discovered that with the people I associate with and in the community in which I live, patience can be defined as less than 5 seconds or more than 5 seconds. So I was at and we probably all experience this in some way, on one end of it or the other. I was at an intersection where the light was red. I could make a turn to the right, lawfully and legally, as it turns out. I probably hesitated 4 total seconds before I was going to be able to turn to the right on a red. And at the 4.1 second mark, 2 cars behind me laid on their horns. Now, I like to think that I'm a fairly responsive person, but in most cases, I need more than just 4 seconds to be able to do something which could have consequences that quickly. So if I take that into a retail environment, what we see almost automatically is in many retail stores, there are lines. That's why companies have put in self-checkouts. When you go into a store and there's long lines at self-checkout and there's long lines at regular checkout, our patience decreases and our impatience level goes very high. And the tolerance level we have has been diminishing dramatically I'm going to say dramatically since COVID, but it was definitely on the downward slope even before COVID. We hate it when we get conflicting information. We want to have a good, solid digital experience. When something goes wrong, we get upset. We don't know who to talk to all the time, but we still get upset. We don't like hidden fees or costs. We hate inefficient process. We're very frustrated if not only an organization fails to resolve our situation, our personal situation, but we're very frustrated when we fall into a group of users who may not have a situation addressed very quickly. If you've ever been in a moment where your Wi-Fi is down and you fall into the customer base of lack of service in a particular area for whatever reason, whether failure of equipment, an install problem, whatever it might be. Most individuals are having trouble keeping themselves patient and collected even for a short period of time. Do I see this as a fault in the individual? No. I think it's the environment around us is changing rapidly enough that our expectations have changed with it. We are very frustrated when we don't get proactive communication about a problem that's being solved. We hate long wait times. We don't like it when it appears to us that customer service representatives have been poorly trained, and we certainly have a problem with product availability issues. Even the more exotic products, things that you wouldn't buy every day, if we can't get them very quickly, we are very unhappy about it, and we even feel the necessity to talk to someone because we didn't get get something as quickly as we anticipated. So there is a lot of societal pressure right now that's on the shoulders of customers that cause us to be less patient. And generally, as a society, I would say our digital experiences over the course of the last 15 years have created a lack of patience in each of us because so many things are so available so fast. And when we don't get it, we have something to say about it. But there's a flip side to this. It's not just about the retail customer or any customer really, but the retail customer. There's also challenges on the part of those employees who are serving the customer, whether they be in a store, online, through a chat or something similar, or whether they be on the phone taking calls from customers all day long during their shift. Customer service professionals are challenged by a few things. Understaffing, there are systemic issues that are difficult to resolve occasionally, even more than occasionally. They're frustrated by customer assertiveness and aggression. Again, this is the issue of how much patience do I have, 3 or 4 seconds, or could I actually be patient for 30 seconds or even a whole minute while a customer service professional tries to address a problem that we might be having. And there is a natural, of course, tendency for employees to suffer from normal workplace stress, which can come from a lot of different avenues. And so it's because I listed systemic here as the second big category of challenges that employees face. I would probably have to put understaffing, customer assertiveness, and workplace stress all under the category of systemic issues. We don't like it as an employee when there are not enough people to handle the customers who are coming in. We're unhappy when we can't provide the level of service. Customer service professionals are unhappy when they can't provide the level of service that they hope for. They want to be able to be successful, and they feel frequently that they're not given the tools necessarily to do that. This is not a uniform kind of thing, not all professionals, not at all companies. But if I were to take a 50th percentile line and draw it right in the middle of all of the professionals who are handling customer service situations, I bet you we would find all of these issues at that 50th percentile. Are there ways for customer service professionals to address the challenges? Absolutely. But we cannot expect customer service employees to be able to address all of the systemic issues. They are not given that latitude. And as a result of that, we as customers need to exhibit greater levels of patience to those individuals who are trying to help us. Adults are finding that harder and harder to do. There's good research out there that suggests this is what I just said is true. Is this a trend that's going to deepen and broaden? I don't know. From where I sit right now, I would say probably, which puts accountability on the side of the employee and the customer equally in order to make it better. So what are the ways in which we can decode customer urgency right now? Since we live in an environment where we're constantly communicating about things that we want to see have done, I don't think any of these should be very surprising as a way to decode customer urgency. But it's important that when the indicator is there, the customer service professional needs to do something about it. So I have been witness to, and I'm sure you have as well, when there is explicit language being used by a customer, especially indicating time sensitivity. I needed this done yesterday. I can't believe that we're still talking about it. This is holding everything up. And what they mean by that is it's holding my life up because of something that you're failing to do. That customer urgency is unfortunately communicated sometimes very assertively when the customer could probably say it in a better way. But nonetheless, it is a tell for customer urgency, the explicit language that's being used. Usually what goes along with that is an elevated emotional tone. I am the kind of person who gets distinctively uncomfortable when I witness elevated emotional tone that's happening either on the part of the customer service rep or on the part of the customer, where it goes from explicit, clear, clarifying language to something that is loud and potentially on its way to being unprofessional and even hurtful. But it is nonetheless a tell when it comes to the urgency that a customer may be feeling. We all probably need to learn a lesson in self-regulation where we can not allow ourselves the luxury of negative emotion, but allow a more logical approach to take hold. Nonetheless, when we hear from a customer, it's a good time for us as a customer service professional to pay close attention. Frequent or escalated follow-ups. I just heard a story not more than 15 minutes ago from someone who said that they have been working with kind of a large faceless organization to resolve a very simple, what seemed to be a very simple transactional follow-up or a transactional problem. And what I heard from this individual was that over the span of 2.5 weeks, they had been trading email after email after email to try to get something resolved without much success. If I'm an organization that's serving the public, I need to pay close attention to escalated follow-ups because I'm already in a deficit with that customer, and trying to resolve it quickly is the only way to get out of that deficit. Lastly, and I would describe this in a way via a personal story. So I've used this particular credit card over a long time. I actually got it after graduate school, which was many years ago, last century. So the initial card was a stone tablet, but we've improved since then. So this credit card company I've been with for a very long time, and I've generally had pretty positive experiences. Recently, I had a negative experience and was one of those that cost me quite a bit of money, in excess, almost $2,000. And as I tried to work through what really had happened, and I was talking to a customer service representative about it, it'd been escalated already a couple of times. The phrase that caught me off guard every single time it was said by the customer service rep at various levels was, well, that is our policy and we're going to stick to it. And, metaphorically speaking, I'm now bowing my head and praying to all of the universal gods, please help me to get through this because I cannot be quoted one more time that they're adhering strictly to their policy, which by definition is something that they could change. Not regulatory, not legal, just policy. And so as time has gone on, customers have picked up on this really quickly, and especially in an electronic virtual world, and they don't like it at all. So dissatisfaction with standard responses like trying to hide behind policy, or a phrase that you use multiple times with the same customer, we're working on it, we'll get to it as fast as we can, or something that the customer reacts to as, I've heard this before, but we still haven't resolved the problem. Why not? I need a concrete answer, not vague reassurance. This issue of urgency comes through in all of the ways that you see here on this slide. I am surprised in moments where a customer service professional is not able to pick up on that urgency. And every once in a while, I'll find myself saying something like, I'm not sure if I'm being clear with you, but I consider this to be a very urgent situation that needs to be resolved. If I say it calmly, it goes a lot further in trying to get it resolved than if I'm high emotion and my tone and volume has raised. I have yet to see great customer service experiences result from either side of that connection yelling at the other side. It just doesn't seem to help the problem. If you've ever been on the side of receiving someone who's being very loud with you, or you yourself are being loud, I'd love to hear some stories about how that worked out well. It normally doesn't. So these are some ways for us to decode the urgency that a customer is feeling. I think the customer on the left in this picture is feeling some level of urgency. When the finger comes out, right, that should be a sure sign that something's going wrong. So if we can all understand the nature of society as it's been evolving, there are some big societal trends that have caused us to become more sensitive. The increase in technology usage is one of those trends. Our expectations have grown as a result of those trends, and we have become generally more comfortable in stating our displeasure about something that's going on. And so if I'm on the receiving end of all that from a customer, I now have I feel that I have an obligation as a professional to be able to start thinking about how to build bridges in situations where the customer has been identified as urgent. They may feel like they're a victim. Unfortunately, you may feel like you're the victim, but nonetheless, we have to be able to move forward in a positive and encouraging way. Here are some ways to think about it. Now, I feel strongly that language is the universal way in which we can indicate a more empathetic approach to those around us. If the language isn't present, I probably cannot just rely on your body language. I cannot rely on emotional tone. I need to hear the things that give me comfort that my problem is going to be addressed, whatever that might be. So starting at the very top, trying to combine empathy with a commitment to action is a very powerful tool on the part of a customer service professional. So things like, I hear what you're saying. I understand. I feel the frustration. I recognize that this is not going the way you wanted it to go, and I'm very interested in and committed to making this work for you. If a customer service professional is able to combine the empathy with the commitment, they will begin to de-escalate the situation. Sometimes it takes more than one try. If the customer is very emotional, potentially very loud, and is not pausing long enough to hear you, then you may have to work at this a couple of times before you can communicate effectively that you have both empathy for the person and commitment to resolve their problem. Another way to do this is acknowledge the customer's own efforts and seek their input on what it is they would like to see as a satisfactory resolution. So I have actually been experienced a customer service rep saying to me, I can see that you have done your research on this, which I really appreciate. It will help me to get through the problem faster. I love the fact that they said that to me. One, it acknowledged that I was simply not showing up hat in hand, unaware of or unconcerned about the level of effort that someone may put into resolving my problem. And so using that kind of phrasing is helpful to get individual customers to understand that you really are paying attention. A third example is to try to take personal responsibility wherever you can. Now, I have noted a trend, maybe you have too, where individuals are sometimes reluctant to assume that they have any accountability at all. And I'm talking about the customer service side of the equation. I work with an organization on a regular basis that provides personal service to individuals in a healthcare environment. And what has been challenging for me as a consumer of those services is when I hear from someone that they're going to make sure that something happens, but they don't take personal accountability to do it. Now, you can overplay this. I get it. But I do have a frequent set of connections related to the care of a relative where I need to have assurance that the individual is going to handle the situation as opposed to some vague, we'll handle it, because that actually doesn't work out so well. So there is an important component of customer service, which is about the rep, the professional taking personal accountability and saying it that way, as well as outlining the concrete steps that they're going to take. That's what's reassuring to customers. That will get you further faster. Another couple of possibilities here. One of them is the ability for customer service professionals to show some level of humility and vulnerability. It's not so much always using the phrase "I'm not perfect" because sometimes that comes across the wrong way, but being able to indicate that that you are exhibiting vulnerability in a way that suggests you're learning and growing as you move along in the work that you do can sometimes create an ally in the customer as opposed to the enemy in the customer. It's a commitment, it's personal growth, it's describing how you're going to get better at something, and then making sure the customer knows you're going to get to that desired result. I'm not perfect, but I'll try to find the answers. If I hear you right, this is your ideal outcome. Seek confirmation, get the customer to say what they really want to see happen, and follow through on the commitment that you're making. Um, Acknowledging a potential need for clarification is a step in the right direction. So uh, maybe you don't suffer from this, but I sometimes do, which is I can speak faster than I should. I've frequently thought through a problem enough that I might be saying very quickly what it is I want to see from an organization that I'm dealing with or the person I'm dealing with. I can think and say it faster because I prepared myself to do it than the customer service rep who I'm dealing with. And so slowing down, asking the right questions, deliberately trying to insert delays that allow you to clarify is going to get you as the rep further, more efficiently, and faster than almost any way you can do it. And describing what you're doing and the reason for doing it is part of that. Bear with me if I need to clarify. I'm listening. Here's what I'm going to do next. Clarifying questions can also indicate to the customer that you're really paying attention. And there's nothing more that a customer likes to hear than to have some of their own wording reflected back to them by the customer service rep that they're dealing with. Acknowledging that there is regret on the side of the organization who may have failed to provide the service is also a surefire way to get an urgent sounding customer to back down just a little bit. Expressing specifically that you wished that this hadn't happened, that you understand the person's concern, and that you're going to try to address it as quickly as possible. The combination of those things is also a very comfort providing for the person. When you are a customer and you experience an abrupt transition, what I mean by that is maybe you're dealing with someone who's just right on the other side of the counter. If you don't hear from that person some level of regret and remorse that this is what the customer has experienced, legitimately experienced, the confidence diminishes greatly. And so that's the reason to make sure that you are vulnerable enough to express the regret on behalf of the organization for which you work. You may not feel that you have control over everything. I get it. I've been in that situation many times, but it doesn't prevent me from expressing empathetically the regret I feel that the customer has needed to go through that problem. So let's talk a little bit about composure techniques that customer service professionals can use. I deeply believe these things, by the way. I'm not throwing them up here on a slide as trivial. In fact, I think they may be able to save your day from being a terrible, wretched day to at least a neutral and maybe even a positive day. um, we are all aware of the fact that almost any adult comes to any situation, whether it's at work, at home, with friends, in the community, with institutions they deal with, they almost all come with a very specific mindset. Research would tell us that most adults have a fairly set mindset by the time they reach 20 years old. And if it's not set by then, it will be set soon after. And this mindset we carry with us everywhere. And as a result of that, many of our behaviors derive from the mindset that we bring with us. If it's going to be a terrible day and we have a mindset that it's going to be a terrible day, guess what? It almost turns out to be a terrible day. Almost always turns out to be a terrible day. So the mindset that we bring with us is a critical component of allowing things to go in a better direction because we have willed it to go in a better direction. I know that sounds like pop psychology, and I'm sorry. See if I can find some better words around it. But it's about being flexible. It's about being malleable. It's about listening carefully. It's about being empathetic. All of those things gives us an opportunity to adjust our mindset. How do we do that? Number one is if you haven't used the technique of deep breathing, you should. Pause, take a deep breath, try to make it not sound like a sigh, one of those, here I am again, but rather that very mindful deep breath that gives you the moment to center yourself and feel as though you can make a positive impact on the situation in front of you. This effort of deep breathing can ground you in the moment more constructively than if you allow yourself to get, let me describe it as in my generation, I call it as getting more hyped up. Your heart beats faster, your blood pressure goes up, all of those negative consequences to allowing the external environment to impact your emotional state, and your body reacts to that. It's about keeping in control of those components that will allow you to get through and recenter yourself and compose yourself for the challenges that you may be having. The mindset issue, the reverse side of that, the other side of it is cognitive reframing. This is an activity that we probably do without realizing it, and we could increase our ability to do it. If I'm faced with someone who is having an urgent, escalated moment, what I have to do is reframe the world and look at it in the way that they are looking at it. It doesn't mean that I'm giving them agreement. It doesn't mean that I'm passing the buck to someone else. It doesn't mean that I am going to resolve the problem in exactly the way they want me to resolve it. But if I can reframe my outlook to be closer to the way they're thinking about it, I will be able to get to resolution more efficiently and in a way that continues to build that customer's confidence in the organization that I'm representing as a CS professional. Focus on solutions. How do we get things better? Not how do we get inadvertently make things worse. I love the opportunity for a professional customer service professional to be able to offer options to an individual, that each of which may be a solution to the problem. If you can offer options, if at all possible, it makes things better in the minds of the customer. Positive self-talk. I'm good at what I do. I enjoy serving customers, even though the customer in front of me is making it more challenging. I like the company I work for. I know that I can get through this. I've been trained to do so. All of that positive self-talk helps you to do it. Now, here's a way that I use positive self-talk when I am the customer who might be in distress. It goes along with cognitive reframing, and it also goes along with mindfulness. So if I know that I'm going to be facing a situation where I am the one who is going to be asking for something different than what I received, even if it is, in my mind, my right to have it, I spend time beforehand scripting myself into a set of interactions and phrases that will make it easier for the customer service rep to give me what I need. If I'm a customer service rep, I should be doing the same thing. I should be scripting myself as quickly as I can into using words that will put the customer at rest and give them reassurance that I know what I'm doing and I can get this accomplished. Occasionally, and this is potentially harder to do, this is the last bulleted item on this particular slide, is to look for a physical release that allows you to get up and move around, to take a break, to do something that not only gives you a chance to deep breathe and clear your mind, but it physically loosens you up. Sometimes this might be the quiet stretching you can do as you're in the middle of a conversation. Um, it could be asking for a moment to walk away. In whatever it is that you're doing, you don't have to say it, I need a minute to go stretch. I think you can say it in a lot of different ways, but giving yourself a little bit more freedom of motion can make a difference in your mindset and the way that you approach a problem. Okay, composure techniques. Here are some good things that you could try. Um, the last two slides I have for you, and then we'll go to a Q&A. If you are a customer service professional, you should be preparing yourself for the inevitable on a daily basis. Um, uh, I recall when I was an inbound customer service phone rep, this was in the financial services industry. I served as both the initial contact as well as an escalation point with a brokerage company. That I needed to become more aware of what my triggers were. And when I say triggers, I mean what a customer could say to me that would potentially trigger me into not saying the right thing or doing the wrong thing. If I could in advance understand what those triggers were, I would be better off. I remember one of the things that for me was always a trigger is that, well, if my business had been with another company, they would have done XYZ for me. And my very flip answer that I had to script myself away from would be, well, then maybe you should do business with that other company. Well, that's not the right answer. But it was a trigger for me. So I had to mentally script what I was going to say in order for me to be successful in my role, especially when I was the point of escalation for a transaction that went poorly. Cultivating calm is another way to prepare yourself for the inevitable. And I know it's difficult to do. There are some individuals who are natively, naturally more calm, and they show that in the way they interact with others. If you're not blessed in that way, then you have to cultivate the calm before the situation is presented in front of you. Pay attention to your physical well-being. The picture on the left is a lady here who's walking. I know that for me, getting some level of physical exercise is a clear contributor to positively preparing for whatever the day or the world has to bring to me. And I do pay attention to that. I no longer can run. I ran for a period of time in my life, but I got to the point where it was more painful than beneficial. So now it's walking and other gym-like exercises. They help me to pay attention to my physical well-being. Three others: know your resources, understand who you can reach out to for help and what you have available. Keep that positive mindset and keep your intentions positive as well. You're there to help the problem, not to make it worse. These are all ways in which you can prepare for the inevitable. And then lastly, as we slide in here to the 45-minute mark, a couple of do's and don'ts. Remember, we are trying to deal with urgent customer situations. We've gone through a litany of things and ways to do it. We've talked about why society has moved in a certain direction. We've identified some places that are particular culprits into that, all of which have served to raise the expectations of customers. There are two do's and two don'ts. Do always stay calm and professional. As soon as you lose it, the customer will lose it too. Do know your limits. If you're at the point where you feel that you cannot productively move forward, then you need to reach out to your resources and someone else who can help you in order to meet or address what the customer situation is. Simply walking away never works. You have to be able to engineer a handoff and understand the point where you need to hand something off, and that will serve the customer's purposes best. Don't take things personally. The customer doesn't know you. They may make offhand comments. They could say things that you believe are generally disturbing and you would not want anyone to say to you. Taking it personally is unfortunately a natural in all humans. What you have to try to do is compress that possibility down to its smallest possible constraints. Don't take things personally. And lastly, of course, is don't argue. Never seen an escalation work well when the rep and the customer are arguing with each other. That's a synthesis of a few things that we've already said. So last couple do's and don'ts. Lot of possibilities here for you to delight the customer on a regular basis, to understand more about what the customer is bringing to the party. I'd like to turn now our time and attention to answering some questions that folks may have. I think I'll take the presentation off the share right now, and let's see if we have any questions from our audience.
Oh, thank you so much, Artel. That was fantastic. And thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. Before we get to the Q&A real quick, I just wanted to let you know that CPED is here. We're ready to help you, your teams, your organization. If you're looking to develop your organization's customer care skills and processes, please let us know. We'd be more than happy to help. I'm always available. I'd love to set up time to talk to you about any consulting, coaching, or any custom professional development programs that you might have in mind. And my email is on this slide. And, I look forward to exploring any of these opportunities with you and your organization. So thanks very much. And I do have some questions, Artel, which would be great.
Sure.
First one, thank you all for submitting. When it comes to flexibility in difficult customer situation, it seems that you're advocating for the customer service to shoulder most, if not all of the responsibility for a good outcome. Shouldn't this be more of like a 50-50?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that here's a theme that runs through a lot of the classes that I teach at CPED, is that we're only really able to address our own behavior with any degree of success. And so there is a bent in the previous presentation where I'm putting a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of the customer service professional, because that's really the only behavior that you can control successfully. It does not remove accountability from the shoulders of the customer. And if at all possible, given that we are all customers, it's important to remember that as we go into any situation. But I do believe that great customer professional behaviors, which are the only things we control, are frequently the key to getting a problem solved. So if someone picked that up, I would say you're right. It is a pickup on what we need to do, but I don't want to give anyone the belief that people can get away with whatever they want to say. I don't believe that either. It's just that we can only truly control our own behaviors.
Great answer. Thank you so much. And I have a couple other ones. So while we have some time, let's just get into the next one. It says, in my experience, customers are asking to speak to the manager the moment they don't get their way. So how can customer service representatives help avoid all these types of escalations that they have?
Wow, isn't that true, right? You probably witnessed it. I want to talk to a manager. I think there's a whole dozens and dozens of communities on social media where they're showing videos and clips of people who are simply running to that. What seems to be like the ultimate request is, I don't want to talk to you, I want to talk to your manager. It's a trend that I think comes from two directions. I think direction number one is organizations generally, I believe, have been limiting the power that frontline customer service professionals have to resolve a situation when it requires a little bit of flexibility in policy. And so I certainly know some folks who work on that end of the spectrum, meaning that they're customer service professionals dealing with customers who feel like their hands are tied. And so part of it is that organizations need to be able to draw that line in a place where a customer service rep can feel empowered to solve the situation and not always, in fact, be relieved when a customer says, I need to talk to your manager because clearly you can't help me. Those reps need to feel more empowered. And so it's coming from that is one direction where it's coming from. The other direction it's coming from is that customers are insisting on instant gratification. We talked about that earlier in the presentation. The more that a customer wants instant gratification, the more they want to go to someone who they're more believing can handle their situation right now. And you will hear some customers ask the question, can you solve my problem? Or do I need to talk to someone higher up who will solve my problem? And they preempt all other possibilities by demanding it in that way. Now, I think customer service reps can do themselves a great justice by saying to a customer who's insisting that they talk to the manager and saying things like this. I understand you want to talk to a manager. I want to make sure that I relay the circumstances effectively and accurately. Let me just ask you a couple of questions. I think that's a good way to do it. Another way to do it is is confirming that maybe, in fact, there really is no need to talk to anyone else because this is what you've been trained to do, and offering that as a commentary to the customer. I think that's a very helpful thing as well. So I would say that the trend is happening from two different directions. Organizations can help with that, but I think also customer service reps can do themselves a good solid by indicating that they do have the expertise, the ability, and the willingness to help a customer who is experiencing a problem. So that's, Laura, what I would say to that.
That's great. And we have one that just came in, and it says, if you're staying calm and doing everything you can to help the customer, but they're still upset, and it feels like they just want to vent out their anger to you, when and how do you draw the line?
Yeah, my feeling about this is that my viewpoint is that I tend to want to give customers plenty of runway to get the emotion out. And if I give them plenty of runway to get the emotion out, it is not unusual for the customer to get to the point where they're more willing to listen to me. So I have not found it effective when dealing with a customer to interrupt them and try to speak over them. I think it's very difficult for a customer to allow a rep to do that, whether they're in person or whether they're on the phone or whether they're in chat. It's more important, I think, to let that emotion play through the interaction. And if you feel as a rep that you just can't seem to get the customer to move in that direction, then you need to use a few phrases that tend to try to close things off. Part of it is paraphrasing. I hear you clearly, sir, ma'am. I hear you clearly, customer, that this is the way you want this resolved, and I'm going to work to that end right now. And try to get the customer to recognize that there is a limit to your ability to hear the same thing over and over again. And you certainly don't want to give the customer full power to insult you as a person or as a professional. And you need to get good at those closure statements. But I don't use them until I feel like the individual until I feel the individual customer has had plenty of time to do the venting, and then I want to come in on top of that.
That's great. Thank you so much. And I think we have time for one more, and I'm really looking forward to what your answer is on this too. So,
Ruh-roh.
what are your
Okay.
thoughts on how customer service and how customer expectations are going to change over the next several years?
It's a crystal ball question, right? I would describe it this way. I don't believe that technology is going to slow down. I think we're experiencing a time in our history where more and more technology and smarter technology is going to be put in place to help resolve customer situations, even potentially proactively. So with the rise of AI, generally speaking, there are a number of organizations who have embraced it fully and are able to help customers get through problems even before they arise. I think that is one trend that we're going to see, and I think it's generally going to be a positive trend. Proactive AI helping customers to avoid problems before they occur. But I also believe that the expectation level on the part of customers is going to continue to rise along with the technology's ability to intervene. So my sense of it is that as technology increases, expectations are going to rise and so forth and so on, and it's going to leapfrog itself up and up the chain. So I think all organizations who deal with the public have to be able to take the technology, employ it as radically and efficiently as they can, because those customers are going to be moving quickly up that ladder of expectation. That's what I believe the future holds for us.